It's interesting. I took a second class from Professor Warner the next year. We became, in an odd sort of way, friends. And later on, as a pastor, I actually developed a character built on Professor Warner. I gave him a name, Professor A.G. Nostick, Distinguished Professor of Secularism from the University of Carnality. And I actually had Professor Nostick come and teach in our church. And maybe he can show up here one day. He'll always, when he comes, he always tries to talk you out of your faith. He's got a great sermon, 5 reasons why you should never share your faith with anyone. Would you like it if Professor Nostick came sometime and spoke? Before I graduated, I went to Professor Nostick, just to wrap up the story, to thank him. I went to his office, and I said, Professor Warner, I just want to thank you. Thank me for what? He said. For making my faith in Jesus and my love of the Bible stronger than it ever would have been otherwise. And he gagged and he wheezed. He went to the file cabinet and poured himself a bourbon, and he turned around and said, how is that possible? And I told him, and these are your next set of notes on your sheet, so write this down. I said to Professor Nostick, well, you know, if God were to write a book, then several things about it would be true. First, its writing would be beyond compare. And Professor Warner, you helped show me that the Bible just blows away every other example of ancient literature. And the stories it tells in its writing, it clearly God must have been behind its creation. And if God were to write a book, then secondly, that book would be accurate and trustworthy to an incredible degree. And you helped show me, Professor Warner, that the Bible is historically accurate. That archaeologists have used the Bible for centuries as a field guide of sorts. You showed me that the Bible is textually accurate. You've spent a lot of time, I said to Professor Warner, trying to tear the Bible apart. But what I've learned is that the text that we have is remarkably accurate. The Dead Sea Scrolls itself show that so much of the Old Testament is what was written. And we have over 5,000 documents that go back to the early centuries that support the text of the New Testament. 95% of it, we know, is exactly what it says. And I said, Professor Warner, you've helped me realize that the Bible is scientifically accurate. And he spouted out at this point, the Bible is not a scientific textbook. And I said, no, it's not. And the people who wrote it, they weren't scientific people. In fact, they probably believed all sorts of crazy things that people back then believed, that the earth was the center of the universe and the sun revolved around that. But here's the thing, Professor Warner, none of those crazy ideas ended up in the book. And I said, thirdly, if God were to write a book, it would have signs that it were supernatural, that it was beyond what an ordinary human could create, or humans. Because over 40 authors have put together the Bible. And those 40 authors, and I have Josh McDowell to thank for this argument, those 40 authors wrote over 1,500 years in 3 languages on 3 continents, and yet they spoke with continuity over dozens of deep moral issues. And the Bible, when you stand back and look at it all, tells one grand story, all focused on Jesus Christ. You couldn't even get 5 people in your classroom to write essays that would be in agreement about one subject. Look at the Bible. And the greatest sign that it's supernatural, Professor Warner, you've helped me learn that it's filled with predictive prophecy. Prophecies about ancient Israel and the nations that lived around them, all of them fulfilled. Prophecies about Jesus, the Messiah, hundreds of years before he came. Dozens of specific prophecies were written down. Jesus fulfilled them all. Prophecies about conditions of the world at the end of the age. And it looks like a stage is being set even as we speak. Professor Warner, I said, I thank you. I thank you for showing me how great and real Jesus Christ is. And I hope and pray that one day you'll learn that too.